Hello everyone, in this video we are going to be discussing a topic from Cambridge IGCSE Biology, the topic of characteristics and classification of living organisms, and this is part 1 of the subtopic concept and uses of classification systems. All right, before going deep into this topic, it's first a good idea for us to understand this term classification. Now, what is meant by classification? Classification simply means grouping things. Or in this case, we're talking about grouping living organisms. So basically, since there are millions of species living on Earth, it's definitely a good idea to group them appropriately. So organisms are classified into groups based on the features that they share. Based on the features that they share with regard to their physical, genetic, and behavioral characteristics, organisms are put into appropriate groups. And this process of classification is known as taxonomy. Right, so taxonomy basically helps scientists to better understand the relationships between organisms and how they have evolved over time. All right. Now, when talking about classification, we talk about classifying species, right? What exactly is a species? How do we define a species? A species is defined as a group of organisms that can reproduce to produce fertile offspring. Now, this is a very important definition in biology, so please keep this in mind. Let's take a closer look at this. A species is a group of organisms that can reproduce among one another to produce fertile, viable offspring. So basically, the different species living on Earth were considered and they were classified into appropriate groups. Now, when talking about classification, there's an important scientist who contributed a great deal to classification, a Swedish scientist named Carolus Linnaeus. Now, Linnaeus, basically what he did was he classified all living organisms in a way that allows the subdivision of them into smaller and more specialized groups. So he introduced a successful system of classification. And after doing all this classification, he even went to the extent of assigning a scientific name to every organism. So every single living organism is assigned a scientific name, and this scientific name is made up of 2 parts. Now you can see over here, a scientific name is given. This is actually the scientific name of a human, which is Homo sapien. Now, Homo sapien, you can see very well that this scientific name always comes in 2 parts. The first part of this name is referred to as the genus name, and the second part of this name is referred to as the species name. So every single organism is assigned with a scientific name like this, which comes in 2 parts. So let's take a look at a few more examples of scientific names. This is going to help you all better understand this naming system. So I'm going to give you all 3 scientific names. The scientific name of a human, the scientific name of an animal, the Asian elephant, and the scientific name of a plant species. I'm going to give you the scientific name of mango. So for human, the scientific name is Homo sapien. For the Asian elephant, the scientific name is Elephas maximus. And for mango, the scientific name is Mangifera indica. Now, when I was writing these scientific names, did you all notice how I have underlined each name separately? And also how I've started the first letter of the genus name with a capital letter. So basically, for any scientific name, there are a set of rules that were assigned by Linnaeus, and we have to always follow these rules when writing down scientific names according to this binomial system. Right, so the rule, here are the rules. There are 4 rules. Rule number 1, the genus name is always first and the species name always comes second. So you can see that, right? In this case, all these names that have come first are the genus names, and all these names and the second part of these names are always the species name. All right, that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, when typed, binomial names are always in italics. If you happen to type these names out, you need to make sure that they are italicized. Like you can see over here, you need to put them in italics. Then rule number 3, if you happen to write these names, when handwritten, each of these names should be underlined separately. That's exactly what I did over here. I was writing them down, so I underlined each name separately. And the last rule, the genus name always starts with uppercase letter, just like I did. It always starts with an uppercase letter, while all letters in species names are in lowercase. All the letters in these species names are all in lowercase. These are the set of rules, and this is what we call the binomial naming system. Now, you might wonder, why is this called the binomial naming system? So basically, this word bi refers to the fact that every organism was given a name with 2 parts. So the word bi means 2, and that's why we call this the binomial naming system. All right. So I also mentioned earlier that Carolus Linnaeus introduced a successful system of classification, right? So let's take a look at his system of classification. This is called the Linnaean system of classification. So what he basically did was, he first took all organisms and he divided them into kingdoms. And then he considered each kingdom and he further divided the organisms into phyla. And then within a phylum, he further subdivided the organisms into classes. And then after classes, he divided them into orders, and then into a family, and then into a genus, and finally into a species. So this is the order that we refer to as the Linnaean system of classification. It goes like this: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. So it's important for you as a student to remember this hierarchy, to remember this order. So here's a little tip for you to remember this order. You can remember this phrase: King Philip came over for good spinach. So the K is referring to kingdom, P for phylum, C for class, O for order, F for family, G for genus, and S for species. This is the order, this is the hierarchy of classification introduced by Carolus Linnaeus. So that's the theory part of this particular section. So now let's take a look at a few questions from the question bank. All right, so here's our first question. The binomial naming system contains 2 types of names. What are they? This is what we just studied. So the 2 names in the binomial system is definitely the genus and the species. So that's our answer, answer 3. All right, let's try another question. So a collection of creatures capable of reproducing and producing fertile offsprings. Collection of creatures capable of reproducing and producing viable progeny is known as. Now, remember I told you all that when we were following the video, that this is actually a very important definition, and this was the definition we learned for species. So this is basically describing a species. So our answer is answer number 1. So that's all for today. I hope you all got a good understanding on this subtopic. Stay tuned for the next video.
Subscribe us now for more videos and content.